So most recently, just a couple months ago, we had a guy who came to the workshop and he had just lost his job. His car had broken down. He had no means of getting to the workshop on his own. He actually was able to get a scholarship to go. And at the end of the workshop, he talked about the fact that it transformed not just his views on his sexual behavior, but it transformed his views on himself, his own identity, and transformed his views on relationships and how he connects with others. And we hear that over and over and over. We hear it from guys who didn't want to come. Their wife or significant other said, you go to that workshop or don't come home. And they come in angry. I don't want to be here. I don't need to be here. And yet God still uses it to transform them. And so we just see that story over and over and over.
Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Today. I'm Rick Probst. Hope you're having a great weekend. Can you believe it's 2025? If I know Ezra, he's going to be writing on his checks 2024 for months and then realize, hey, wait a minute, it's 2025. Hey, welcome to the show. Coming up next weekend, January the 10th through the 12th, it's the Everyman's Battle Intensive Workshop from the folks at New Life. JJ West is with us. I think JJ was a rock radio announcer with that name years ago, and he decided that it was time to connect with New Life. He lives in the Mecca there in Orlando, Florida, and we're all going to visit because he's cooking brisket about every weekend. So we're going to talk to him about the intensive workshop and more. But first, hey, thank you so much for listening to our podcast and watching our show on YouTube and Facebook. The numbers are crazy. I don't get it because I'm a senior, but my producer is young and he says that it's good. So just keep going. And it's always about the guest and not about the host. And that's fine with me. So thank you so much for doing that and passing along these podcasts or these shows. And please do this one with JJ. It is definitely one to keep and one to send around. So you can go to faithtalkatlanta.com or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, JJ. All right, JJ. I know you're not going to tell us what JJ stands for, but were you a radio announcer? Were you a radio announcer before you connected with New Life? I mean, JJ West, come on, that's a given.
Well, it's a little known secret that in high school, I worked at an AM radio station.
Wow.
For about 6 or 8 months. So technically, yes, but no, I was not. No.
Hey, thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks for all you guys do. For years we've connected with New Life, and just the fruit is amazing. And thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I believe that. JJ West on the radio, no doubt. If you ever lose that gig with New Life, you've got a job. By the way, and you are also on New Life Live, aren't you? The co-host?
I am one of the many co-hosts.
Yeah.
There are many that join. I'm on that show about 4 or 5 times a month.
Yeah.
And then we also have a podcast, the Everyman's Battle podcast, that I host with a guy named Doug Barnes, and that's been so. I'm kind of in the media realm a little bit, but not like you. Not like you.
Now, I don't want to get ahead of the game, but the podcast is fairly recent, isn't it? It's fresh, isn't it?
Yes. We just released this last January of 2024.
Yeah.
We released the first season, and we're actually getting ready on January. In this month, we're releasing season 2. So yeah, it's a new thing. We're trying to bridge the gap because we know that there's a lot of people out there that want to know more about the Everyman's Battle Workshop, or maybe have never heard of the Everyman's Battle Workshop. And so we're trying to introduce the concepts as well as expand on the concepts, the topics that we cover at the workshop, because the workshop is, we're there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so the podcast allows us to go a little bit more in depth with several of those topics that we cover.
And being a radio guy, as we segued into podcast years ago, I mean, hey, who's not listening to a podcast, right? And it's at your fingertips. Yeah. It's easy to get to. It's easy to send links to, hey, listen. Right. So it's good stuff. So we want to give us the name real quick. Is it Every Man's Battle Podcast?
It's called the Every Man's Battle Podcast, and you can
Okay.
get it everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
All right. We want you to do that. If you're watching or listening, do that and send it to you say, wait a minute, I don't have a problem. Well, listen to it anyway. And no doubt you can pass that along to somebody. It's going to help.
Without a doubt.
The Every Man's Battle Podcast. Good stuff with J.J. West and his partner there. What'd you say, Doug?
Doug Barnes. Doug Barnes. Yeah, he serves as one of our facilitators and does some of the presenting at the workshop as well. And he's been doing Every Man's Battle intensives since they started, basically. So he's been around the game a while. He knows his stuff.
Good stuff. J.J. West with us from New Life. We're talking about the Every Man's Battle Intensive Workshop. Let's talk about intensive. I mean, that really stands out, doesn't it? This is not just you show up a couple of tunes and you're done.
That's right.
This is like in your face. Hey, I'm trying to help you. Tell us about it.
That's correct. Yeah, it really is. It's not a lecture series. You're not just coming to listen and maybe take a few notes. This is a workshop, an intensive where you are doing work and you're doing the work for your freedom. So many guys who are coming to the Every Man's Battle workshop are coming because they've had decades, a lifetime of struggling with sexual integrity. They've struggled with either pornography or going to strip clubs or affairs or massage parlors or whatever their thing is. We call it acting out, whatever their acting out thing is. They've struggled with it for so long and they've been inundated with shame about it. And they don't feel like there's any way out. They've tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. And so the workshop gives them very practical ways of finding freedom, but you have to do some work. You have to come in and dig into, because it's not just about behavior. It's not just about ceasing a behavior. It's about learning how to do authentic relationship.
J.J. West with us from New Life. He's talking about the Every Man's Battle Intensive Workshop, and that's coming up the 10th through the 12th. So who should show up, JJ? Who should be there?
Yeah. So it should be any guy from 18 to 99 or above, right? Who has struggled in some way with their sexual integrity, where what they want to be sexually doesn't line up with what they have been, or what they believe God wants them to be sexually has not lined up with where they have lived, what they have done. And they've struggled with that and they've wanted to change. And so we have everything from guys who struggle with looking at porn, engaging in sexual acting out occasionally, but still feel really bad about it. And that's a big deal for them, all the way to the guys who have had multiple divorces, have lost jobs, have spent time in jail because of their sexual acting out, and everything in between. So really, it is a workshop intensive for every man. It is specific to men. We tackle this from a men's perspective. So we're looking at what's happening in our hearts that leads us, that drives our sexual behavior. We're also talking about the brain chemistry, what's happening in our brains neurochemically when we're engaged sexually, especially when we're engaged sexually acting out. And we're talking about very practical ways of learning to do connection in authentic ways. So we're not trying to meet legitimate needs in illegitimate ways.
I love that it's called Every Man's Battle, because every man has a battle of some sorts, a potential battle. And so when you go to an event like this, the workshop, the intensive workshop, you're not an isolated person. So the spotlight doesn't come on you when you walk through the door and everybody's quiet. And they're going, right. there he is.
There he is. He's actually the one. Yeah.
There we all are. And we appreciate that this is helping and has helped men for so many years. What have you seen over the years, JJ? I mean, the stories are too numerous to share in one interview, but maybe pick one out. Of course, no names mentioned, but just the transformation that you've seen.
Well, you're absolutely right. The stories are quite numerous, and I say it all the time. I get to sit on the front row and watch God work miracles in people's lives, and I get paid to do it, which is a really cool gig. I like it. So most recently, just a couple months ago, we had a guy who came to the workshop and he had just lost his job. His car had broken down. He had no means of getting to the workshop on his own. He actually was able to get a scholarship to go. And at the end of the workshop, he talked about the fact that it transformed not just his views on his sexual behavior, but it transformed his views on himself, his own identity, and transformed his views on relationships and how he connects with others. And we hear that over and over and over. We hear it from guys who didn't want to come. Their wife or significant other said, you go to that workshop or don't come home. And they come in angry. I don't want to be here. I don't need to be here. And yet God still uses it to transform them. And so we just see that story over and over and over. And to your point earlier, it is every man's battle. So many of us, and this is my story, I share that in the workshop, that this is my story of sexual brokenness. We walk around feeling like I'm the only one. I'm this horrible person and nobody could possibly understand. And then you walk into this room with anywhere from 30 to 90 guys who all are here for the same reason. And you go, oh, wow, I'm not alone anymore. It's amazing.
JJ West with us from New Life. We're talking about the Every Man's Battle Intensive Workshop. And you mentioned that's why this is more than one night, because the first night, the guys that were sent are getting over the head game and going, geez, I wish I wouldn't have come. This is just crazy. And then by the end, somewhere around the 11th into the 12th, there's a transformation happening. And hey, believe me, I've heard it and seen it over and over again. So even if you're not feeling it, go and check it out. It is the Every Man's Battle Intensive Workshop, and it's the 10th through the 12th. We want to give you the website. It's newlife.com. That's where you can find out where to go and how you can get there. JJ, you've been such a great guest. We got to have you back. There's so much more I want to ask you. We could talk about We could talk about brisket. We could talk about the Mecca of Orlando and how it feels to live right there in the midst of it. No, we'll talk about good, important stuff about Every Man's Battle Workshop Intensive there in the podcast. Hey, check out the podcast. I've got to believe that guys that go to this, you're not going to be left alone once you've gone through it. You've got resources like reading materials probably, but the podcast is genius to help you guys. Go ahead.
The podcast is just one of the resources. So when they're at the workshop, they're going to be in small groups. And those guys, the guys in your small group, they become this band of brothers that you go through the battle together. And then you have a follow-up. We have this follow-up program called Sustained Victory, where you do a weekly Zoom call for an hour and you stay in touch with these guys and you continue to talk about living this out, living out sexual integrity. And we've got guys who've been a part of Sustained Victory for 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
That they continue to do it because it's been such an enriching part of their life to be deeply connected to other men who understand them and who are for them and who are spurring them on to love and good deeds.
I love that. Thanks for doing that. You and your team putting that together at New Life. It is the Every Man's Battle Intensive Workshop. Hey, it's good stuff. It always has been. It continues just to rock and roll. January the 10th through the 12th, newlife.com. Find out more and sign up. And hey, take this podcast and pass it around. JJ, what a delight. I hope you come back and would love to chat with you about stuff, important stuff, and just, other stuff too. So good stuff. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being a part of this show. Next week, another stellar guest. Have a great week. I'm Rick Probst. This is Faith Talk Today. See you.